brings us to the next part of the live dev chat, and that's the questions. So throughout the last couple of days, we've been soliciting questions from our Twitter and Facebook Reckoning community, and we'd like to present some of those questions now. So kicking things off, we have a Twitter question from Boris Court. I would like to know what you think sets your game apart, as well as more about the world you're building for it.
Okay, so well, there's a lot that sets a game apart. The first, and I'm particularly partial to this, is the Destiny system. So most RPGs, or almost all RPGs, you choose your class up front. You say, I'm going to be a paladin or what have you. And I hope you like it, because for the next 60 hours or 80 hours, whatever, a massive chunk of gameplay, you're going to be stuck with it. Reckoning does things a little bit differently. We start you off both fictionally and systemically as a blank slate, tabula rasa, with no destiny at all. So as you get into the tutorial and you get to try some of the different play styles, at the end of the tutorial we say, okay, you've unlocked these 3 destinies, sort of the basic mage, rogue, and warrior destinies. And you get to take one of those upon yourself, and that becomes your class. So first you don't have to make that decision until you kind of know what you're doing. And then second, after you've made that, you're not done. As you keep leveling up and putting points in things, you're going to unlock more and more destinies across those 3 trees and across different hybrids of them. Even a jack of all trades, it actually does all 3 equally. And then you can change those destinies whenever you want. And as you've seen in our demo bit here, it'll change some of the core mechanics of the game. So pretty cool. So the Destiny system I'm a big fan of. Another thing is the sheer size of the world. This is an open world game where you can go wherever you want, and it's just huge. We have these 5 different geographic regions. Each is totally different biome, different architecture, everything about it is distinct. We have over 120 dungeons, each of which is handcrafted. There's no 2 alike. It's just big. So there's certainly that. And finally, the thing that we like to talk about a lot is the combat. I love RPGs to death, but the honest truth is their combat usually isn't very good. And Reckoning, we've gone a very, very long way to make combat one of our key features. We actually have more action game style combat, but still using all the things we like about RPGs. So what you can do in battle and how you do it and how the timing plays out and all of that comes down to the decisions you've made RPG style, like what gear you're using, what destiny you've got, what abilities you've invested in, and so on. So those things are really exciting to me. As far as, I believe, the world was the other question, like kind of the what makes the world interesting.
Yeah, as well as more about the world that you are building for it.
All right, well, I kind of just talked a little bit about just how it's divided up into those zones and such, but it's the world's called Amalur, and what's cool about it is that R.A. Salvatore, Major League fantasy author, how many times New York Times bestseller? 20 plus? Okay, it's definitely over 20, yeah.
He's been around for a while.
Yeah, so
famous in the fantasy market.
exactly. So R.A. wrote this 10,000-year story Bible, like the history of the world of Amalur, and we're set kind of in the, I'm not going to tell you exactly what year, but we're set in the midst of that, and just having that huge backbone of history and mythology to the world gives it all the sense of reality. And we're set 2,000 years before the MMO that the other 38 Studios office is working on. So between the 2 games, we're just building out this I'm sorry to use the word, but epic world that just has all these different.
With using the word epic.
I don't know, it's terrible. I can't help it, but just all the different races and political strife and just all the different bits and bobs happening in the world. It gets it. There's a lot of kind of texture and love there.
Okay. Yeah. One of our Facebook questions was from Michael Burkhead. Will we be able to add or choose NPC companions to assist us on quests?
Yes and no. So we don't have systemic companions. It's not like Mass Effect or something where you just like choose this person and go into a mission. But we do have quests where you'll have a major character with you. We have other quests where you can decide whether or not you want to have someone with you. But it'll be in the context of that particular storyline or quest or what have you.
So we saw an example of that in the demo show ago.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Some of the major characters will be with you for longer stretches, but in a side quest like that, it'll be like a contained environment.
Thomas McGinty from Facebook said, how many hours of expected gameplay are we going to have, and are there multiple endings expected?
So short answer is a lot. The thing that's hard about a game like this, really any open world game, but maybe Reckoning more than most, is the number of hours question. It's kind of hard to actually answer that. If you were to just do the main quest and nothing else, and you were really good at the game and you just focused, I don't know, maybe 30 hours, but realistically no one plays these games that way. Some people are picking every flower, some people are doing, X% of the side quests and so on, and it could be hundreds of hours if you were to go and explore every corner and every nook and cranny. So it's just going to vary a lot depending on the player.
Okay. Andrew Carafa, I dislike RPGs that force the game to end once you have completed the main quest line. Will there be elements to keep the replay value high without having to restart the game completely?
Okay, well, he will like the answer to this question. So, yeah, so when the main quest is completed and the story as such is done, the game doesn't actually end. After the credits have rolled, we let you hop back in and keep playing. The vast majority of content of the game is still very much playable after you've won the game, and the various other kind of side stories continue to go. And in some cases, we actually unlock new content. There are quests you can't even do until after you've beaten the game.
Okay, very cool. James Lothar asked, will both the world-based and dungeon-based enemies respawn? If so, what kind of time frame will they respawn in?
Answer to all of that is it varies. So some enemies, you kill them once and they stay dead because they're a unique person with a name and a history, and it makes no sense for them to come back. But with the more kind of generic monsters throughout the world, a lot of them will respawn over time, and the time length on that is always measured in game time. I think the average is 3 days, but it varies depending on where you're at in the world and kind of like how believable is it that this place would be repopulated in a hurry. So we've kind of tuned it based on that.
Okay. We touched on this a little bit before. Kurt Grimsley asks, how will combat change or progress as the character increases in his or her level or experience? So far, we've seen some really cool combination attacks, and I'm wondering what those will look like by the time our character is really powerful in his own right.
So what we've shown you here is a level 20 character, and the level cap is 40. So hopefully that gives you some sense of kind of where what we're demoing here stands in the spectrum of things. Well, let's see. What have I not said? So every time you level up, you can invest in skills, and there's 9 of them, and that's kind of non-combat focused stuff to help you with exploring the world and kind of diving into the quests. And then again, there's over 60 abilities spread across these 3 trees you can invest in, and they have prerequisites of their own. And a lot of the kind of interesting bits of the combat in the game come from how you choose to combine them. Like if you watched in this demo, as Joe had his Mage Rogue hybrid character, he was able to freeze someone using a frost trap, which then slowed them down even more because of an ability he chose to invest in on the sorcery tree, which makes your ice damage in general more effective. Then he could teleport back through them with the daggers because of another ability chosen. Then he could lunge through them from the other direction because of another ability chosen. So like just the way all the different combinations play together, even within a single tree, even if you're not hybridizing, it's kind of what makes that leveling up process so interesting.
Okay. Brenton McLeod asked, if we put points into skills we no longer want, will there be a way to reassign points into different skills?
So short answer, yes. So as you play through the game, based on your decisions, you're going to unlock those destinies that I mentioned, and you can change them however you want, whenever you want, by going to a Fate Weaver. If somehow you build a character you're just totally not happy with, though, and the Destiny system generally prevents that from happening, but let's say you somehow do it, you can go to a Fate Weaver and pay them some gold to essentially reset yourself, to get back all your skill and ability points. And the first time, not too expensive. The more often you do it, the more they start gouging you. So yes, but don't do it too much or it gets costly.
Michael Liconti asked, will Magi be able to study under different schools of magic, such as necromancy or mind manipulation?
So that's an interesting question. At this point in the history of Amalur, this is something that RA actually focuses on a lot in the history of the world. Magic has come back into the world after a very long absence. So for a very long time now, Amalur has been magic-free. And now it's coming back in and it's sort of surging throughout the world. And it's very chaotic. So it hasn't been codified yet into like, for instance, there aren't a lot of religions in the world at this time. There are some, but not a lot. And the schools of magic haven't really developed yet. Right now it's all kind of magic, sort of whatever. That said, within the sorcery tree, you have a variety of abilities that fit those kind of traditional models. Like you have something that lets you summon a Faragorda, sort of a skeletal construct that can serve your whims. It's not necromancy, but it's what a lot of players come to expect from necromancy. We have these different elemental abilities that Joe's used some of here, based on fire, lightning, and ice. That one's fun, actually, the Tempest ability. So you see he has to charge it up there to get it off, right. And it's an AoE. If he gets hit when he's in the middle of that, it won't go off, he won't actually get the full AoE, but he becomes like a human lightning rod, so whoever hits him, it discharges into them. So, kind of cool.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm rambling. Go on.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Nick Smith asked, how deep is customization in the game visually? Can we customize weapons and armor as well as character appearance and or race? Or is it simply white male human like most RPGs?
So yes, and no. And I think that was the number of questions.
Oh, right.
So,
that about covers.
so you saw a little bit earlier. Yeah, we have a wide suite of customization options. 4 different races. You can be both genders. The races all have their own kind of different options of hairstyles and skin tone and all that stuff, and whatever makes sense for them visually and fictionally. You can choose your patron god, and then once you're actually in the game, if you get a player house, you can actually recustomize your appearance. That's one of the features of having a house. They have a thing that lets you recustomize yourself. And all the loot, in addition to just being a crap ton of it, so you can dress however you want, you can use that blacksmithing system to make your own equipment and wear that.
Kareem El Masri asked, can we put every element on every weapon? If not, how is the forging system handling that aspect?
So it's interesting. If you're using Sagecraft, which is the skill that lets us socket gems into stuff, there's different kinds of gems, different kinds of sockets. And generally, a weapon will only have one socket. So if it already has ice on it, you could add fire, but you can't add fire and ice to it, if that makes any sense. The blacksmithing system is a little more flexible. I believe you actually can do all 3 elements on a single weapon. It's got to be a little bit crazy particle-wise, but you can do it. There are certain rules to the blacksmithing system, but probably don't want to go into that level of detail at this point.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nick Smith asked, romance options, adult themes, or are we talking about a kid-friendly game?
So adult themes, yes. It's not especially kid-friendly. It is an M-rated game. We don't do romance quests, though. There are kind of some hints of romance in the game, but not formal romance quests.
Okay. William Sly asked, will there be useful loot on vendors, or will vendors just have generic stuff that is useless?
I feel like there's a right answer to this question.
There probably is somewhere.
I don't. It's just sort of a hint built into it, I think. Yeah. So loot on merchants obviously varies. If you are a pure mage character and you go to a blacksmith, probably not going to have a lot of stuff that you want. Right. But in general, yeah, merchants are designed to have stuff that you either can't find or can rarely find in the world, like a blue or green items, which are some of our more rare items. So you want to go to them and you want to spend that money. And actually, what was the second bit of that question?
Will vendors just have generic stuff that is useless?
Yeah. So I mean, I hope not. If we're doing our jobs, then no. Yes, they're always going to have some good stuff on them. And again, things that you don't want, you can instantly sell them with a single button click, just for convenience sake. And also, the loot doesn't actually change that they serve over the course of the game, with a couple of very rare exceptions. So if you find that item you want, you can't quite afford, it will still be there later. We don't disappear those things over time.
That was actually something that we kind of covered earlier in the demo, when you purchased multiple weapons and took them over to the forge and stripped them down, or salvaged them down to the base components.
Yeah.
So does the loot that a vendor sell change the character levels up, or is that just kind of static with the inventory that you just described?
It's usually static. There are a couple story moments where new things get added to a merchant that they didn't already have, but generally it's static. You can invest in the mercantile skill, however, which makes things cheaper for you. Makes things cheaper, makes you sell things for more, and actually lets you, if you hit your inventory limit when you're out in the middle of a dungeon or something, and you just destroy your items, if you invest in the mercantile skill, you can actually get some gold back from those. Kind of the implication that you're going to take them back and resell them.
All right. Well, we are now about out of time. So what's going to happen is we have a couple of Reckoning T-shirts that we will be giving away. Kurt Schilling and some of the staff are going to autograph the shirts, and we will actually choose the people that get the shirts from the people that gave us questions on Facebook and Twitter.
Awesome.
So basically, that's about it. Thanks for joining us in the live broadcast. Please stick around for more activities throughout E3. Need for Speed, the run starts at 5 p.m. Pacific, so just a little bit from now. I'm Charles Dean.
Hi, Ian Fraser.
And pop your head in, Joe. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks.